Please welcome to the stage Ryan Galili, Global Senior Director, Brand and Creative Strategy, McDonald's.
It is so great to be here. Actually, just such a healthy reminder how important it is to get out of your office and come and enjoy a couple days to be inspired and learn from others. And so my hope and gift back to you is to share with you in the next half hour a little bit of inspiration. At McDonald's, we call it ROI, Return on Inspiration, talking about the brand and the creative role at McDonald's. Before I do that, though, I did want to acknowledge the fact that McDonald's, as many of you know, has been in the news a lot lately, especially over the past week. It's obviously a testament to the brand's role that we play in people's lives, in the industry, and in culture. But we will continue to work hard to make sure that we continue to earn the trust of our fans, just like we have over the past 70 years. But today is about talking two topics that I love, the brand and creative. And so yes, this is me. Hello, I'm Ryan. I'm the one on the left. And I'm going to be coming back to the slide in just a moment. The talk today is about creativity as a growth multiplier. I strongly believe, and I'm going to share with you today, how creative can not only grow the brand, but grow the business, grow scale, grow capabilities, and grow talent. And I'm going to share quite a few case studies from around the globe that really help tell the story. Before I do that, who you see on the screen here is our global CMO, Morgan Flatley. We are extremely honored to be here, and we just want to thank you for nominating us as part of the Brand Hall of Fame. So I thought, how better to kick this off than to share with you that last June, we brought Ian Borden, he's our CFO, to Cannes. It was the second time a CFO has ever graced the stages of Cannes. And so to many, that seemed very unorthodox. But to us, it's not crazy at all. In fact, we believe strongly, as Ian does, that marketing is a growth driver at McDonald's. And so this is why we expect to see CNBC reference our creative campaigns. It's why we talk about our fans and fan truths when we invite all the investors and shareholders to come to McDonald's once a year. And it's why the Wall Street Journal thinks we're cool. Some of you may or may not think that's a good thing, but for us at McDonald's, we really do believe that that's a cool thing. But it wasn't like that always. So if you go back a little bit to 2017, 2018, things were very, very different at McDonald's. And so the talk today is about how do you transform the brand, but also the business. 7 years ago, marketing played a very different role at McDonald's. For those of you that are not familiar with our op model, 95% of our restaurants are franchise owned. And so the operators and the franchisees obviously play a very heavy role in approving the dollars that are spent in marketing. Marketing was used as more of a short-term promotional tactic. Anytime we wanted to make a change at the restaurant, we heard a lot of no. That adds complexity. We can't do that. And so we decided to take a step back and really set the tone for the role that we wanted marketing and creativity to play. And so how did we get here? For some context, I'm going to cover in about 10 seconds, which you probably don't need, but McDonald's is very big. We have a lot of restaurants. I think I saw one right down the street here. And so just a quick show of hands, just how many of you have actually visited a McDonald's in the last year? So that looks very similar to what I see. So 80% of the world's population have actually visited McDonald's in the last year. That's something we really need to celebrate and take advantage of. We do it very globally, but what you'll see later on is that there are definitely local nuances that we take advantage of. And so the story here is really going to be told in 4 parts. Creativity as a growth multiplier is really about focusing on the fans, showing and leaning into creative bravery and culture, and sharing and scaling. No matter what size company you work for, there's an opportunity to share, scale, and steal, which we talk about. First step, focus on the fans. Obviously, that sounds very obvious, right? But I'm going to talk about what do we mean at McDonald's specifically that I've learned so much on if you take this approach. So 7 years ago, our global CMO said, I want marketing to play a different role at McDonald's. And the way I'm going to do that is share with the whole system, the McDonald's system globally, what do we mean by marketing at McDonald's? And she defined it with our team, feel-good marketing. What does feel-good marketing mean? It really blends fame and feeling. I always tell people if you're having a day like this, McDonald's is hopefully going to give that little bubble of happy to get you to have a day like this. We inject that little bubble of happy, and that's the role that we play in 63 million fans every single day. Let's take a quick look at some of the feel-good marketing around the globe. So a really nice, just quick summary of what we mean by feel-good marketing. I'm going to dive into a couple of those case studies to prove my point. But after establishing the foundation of what does feel-good marketing mean, we set a global mission around making delicious feel-good moments easy for everyone. And as part of that, to realize that new brand strategy, one that really needed to refocus all of our energy on our fans. And there's no one that does it better than Taylor Swift. The haters gonna hate. But there is so much that we can learn from Taylor. I don't know how many Swifties out there, how many of your kids or you have been to her concerts, but there's something that she does so well. And that one thing that she's done is really make everyone feel like one of a billion to one in a billion. She's built a $1 billion brand. She's built a community. When you are at her concert with 40,000 others, it feels intimate. It feels like she's singing and talking to you, whether it's the handwritten notes that she gives and hand delivers at the concerts, or whether she invites people backstage or shares all the different posts that she gets on social. She does an incredible job of building a community of fans to make them feel like one-on-one, that intimate relationship that she's built. And so I feel like we can learn from that. And so to meet scale with intimacy, we have what we do and we take road trips. So whether it's in Canada or China or Germany or the US, we go around and we take a road trip. And we talk to people in the restaurant at McDonald's, and then we talk to people outside the restaurant at McDonald's. So what you see here is Amy with her kids, and that young boy in the blue shirt made a comment to say that I don't eat Happy Meals anymore. He was so proud that he outgrew the Happy Meal. We're going to come back to that fan truth in just a moment. What you have here on the screen is Andrea Chavez. We actually met her at McDonald's, and on her lunch break, she actually dreams of, she's studying to be a lawyer, and her dream is to be able to celebrate her citizenship at McDonald's. The other thing we find is that after a lot of kids get their license, they like to go through the drive-through, or sometimes after a big achievement, a lot of the kids like to hang out after school, just like Aziz, Milo, Joshua, and Raman, who are also so obsessed with the Travis Scott meal, but they come to McDonald's to refuel before heading to the skate park. And then we also witnessed a big debate on some of the sauces, and we're going to talk about some of the fan truths in just a moment. So as marketers, we learned something that our customers already knew. There's two sides to McDonald's. There's the business, and then there's your McDonald's, the one around the corner. For me, it's my McDonald's. It's Diana who knows me through the drive-thru as I get my iced vanilla sugar-free latte every morning. But everyone has that story of the local McDonald's, whether it's your grandma that took you there when you were younger, your parents have taken you there, you go there with your friends. Everyone has that story. Has anyone even had a birthday at McDonald's here? I don't know. A couple people raising your hands. Okay, we're going to come back to that in a moment as we celebrate our good friend Grimace. So there's huge power in the small truths our audience already knows: the warm, the familiar, and the insights. So we wrote a book about them. I forgot to bring it today, but I have a deck of cards that we call Fan Truths. And what we do is there are universal truths about McDonald's that no matter where you are across the globe, those fan truths hold true. And when we go and do creative workshops, we hand them out to all of our agency partners and to the marketers to really help inspire them, as you can see here. And these truths help people see the brand that they grew up with. The most important thing, though, is that it's through the eyes of a fan. We take a product truth and then spin it through how a fan would talk about that product. It's not about speaking just to the super fans, but finding that fan in everyone. So, as I mentioned earlier, we set the brand foundations. Feel-good marketing. We had a benefit ladder. We have a positioning. We have the tone. We have the voice. And the voice is fan to fan. We never want to talk corporate to fan or brand to fan. Everything we do is through the eyes of a fan. So a fan truth can inspire a lot of different things, like we do with our food. If any of you guys been to McDonald's and eaten a cheeseburger and you end up scraping off the cheese, that's a fan truth. Have any of you gone through the drive-thru and your friend asks you what you want to order and you say, "I'm good," and then they grab some French fries and you end up stealing a couple of them? Or maybe you're ordering something through the drive-thru and while you're going, you end up reaching in to grab that last fry? Or maybe you decide if your friend is really McNugget worthy. Are they worth sharing that last McNugget with? Those are fan truths that we really uncovered with our food. Sometimes you can use fan truths to crave a feeling of going to McDonald's, or it can inspire a global platform. And I'm going to share some of those with you today. No matter how famous you are, everyone has a McDonald's order. And that fan truth really helped inspire a platform that I'm going to talk to. It's very similar to our Coke fans who are speaking, I think, right now. Wanted to call out, Andy Warhol talked about a Coke is a Coke. So no matter how famous you are, a Coke is a Coke. Very similarly, no matter how famous you are, everyone has a McDonald's order, which means we could partner with folks like Travis Scott, or potentially J Balvin, or Saweetie, or we could do a Valentine's Day promotion with Cardi B and Offset, and on and on and on, so that fans could take this and share the pen with us. And as you can see here, they always have so much fun with our famous order meals where they take that and create their own shoes or Halloween costumes. This would have been merch we designed with Travis Scott until he came in and said, this is the actual merch that we're going to design. And you know you hit it big when Vicki Chancellor, who's the head of US franchise, our owner-operators, say that the crew actually want to wear this when they leave work. A lot of times they leave work, they take off their McDonald's gear and they head out. They actually wanted to wear the swag and the outfits that we gave them from the promotion. A simple yet a very brave idea that we've exported to 55 markets. Global ideas executed locally. The other thing we do, and all of you can do before you launch a campaign, is test it on social. What better way? We actually threw this tweet out there, "Can I get a..." And next thing you know, we put it on the Super Bowl with our very own Ryan Reynolds, our Canadian-American friend, who was the voice of Grimace. So instead of asking, will it work? We now ask, is it true? Are we solving real problems for real people? And that is a really strong shift that we've really tried to embed at McDonald's, specifically over the last 4 years, and it's working. Second is to show creative bravery. Again, sounds pretty easy, right? Once you root everything in fan truths, that really opens the door for you to be able to do things like you see on this screen. Remember I said this fan truth earlier from that little boy that we met at Walmart? One day you ordered a Happy Meal for the last time and you didn't even know it. That inspired a new campaign that was launched about the Happy Meal. What if you were never too old? What if all of us could have our own Happy Meal? Adults can have Happy Meals too. Let's take a look at the spot.
Hey, Cactus Buddy!
Sweet ride, Cactus Buddy! Rebel, rebel! Go, go, go!
Welcome to McDonald's. Anything your order?
Applause! Applause!
The cactus flea marshmallows.
So what's so beautiful is, yes, it drove the brand, but more importantly, it also drove the business. The average check on the adult Happy Meal, which sold out in 12 days, was over $20, which is a lot for McDonald's. So a nice way to drive the brand in the business. And if any of you are headed to Spain in the next week, you can go check out the Friends box, which just launched. And it was an idea that was stolen from the US around this idea of you are never too old to enjoy a Happy Meal. I love this campaign out of Japan with a fan truth that a crew smile should be real and not enforced. I don't know if any of you have been to a McDonald's in Japan, but the crew there are so kind. And as part of the actual rules or some of the different ways that they have to become, employees there, part of the rules is you have to stop and smile. But if you look at Gen Z, that's not authentic to them. And so if you think about post-COVID, employee retention and trying to recruit has been very challenging. And so there have been different campaigns out there, but this one was the one that was most successful because it tapped into a local fan truth, which is you really needed to be yourself and not be forced. So they partnered with an influencer named Ano, who was actually fired, not from McDonald's, but fired from another retailer for not smiling. And so we brought her on. She created a song. It went crazy viral, and they actually took out the idea of smiling out of the manual. So you can actually get Gen Z to be themselves and be authentic, which is what they really want. And as you can see, numbers went through the roof. And so this is just such a brave idea, especially for a market like Japan, where smiling has always been part of the norm. But if you think about who we're targeting, and 60% of Gen Z are actually working at McDonald's in Japan, you have to be authentic to what they want and how they want to come across. So we created a culture of saying yes and a more relaxed attitude about failure. We talk about failing forward. We talk about the almost. There's a lot of different ways that we talk about failing at McDonald's. And there's even some markets that take 10 to 15% of their budget and put it aside to take even more risks and potentially fail forward. So now our execs ask marketing to scare them a little more. A few years ago, this obviously would have terrified them. So instead of saying that won't work, we now say feel the fear. If it gives you a tummy rumble when you see an idea, that's wonderful. About a week ago, a CMO in one of our markets reached out to myself to share an idea, and she said, I don't know if this is the craziest idea in the world or if this is just the best idea in the world or both. And that's exactly what we want to see. I always tell the marketers, it's so great to start for an idea here and bring it in, then have an idea here and then to think, how do I make it bigger? So feel the fear and get that tummy rumble. That's okay. Leaning into culture. Before we can talk about how to lean into culture externally, we have done so much work at McDonald's to really lean in and build a culture of creativity internally. So remember this picture? Yes, that is still me on the left. Last week, I was so fortunate to host what we call the Feel Good Marketing Awards. It's in front of 1,200 marketer and agency partners around the world, and we celebrate all the great work happening. We have different categories. It's kind of like the Oscars of marketing at McDonald's. And this year's theme was all about level up, leveling up the work, leveling up talent. And so we bring, for the first time last year, and I'm a firm believer in this, is that if you don't have your own way of, you should definitely reward, the great work. But more importantly, bring in external brain trust. Bring in folks like yourselves to come in and look at our work and help tell us what you love and why you love it and what could be better. And that is the best gift you can do is feedback. And so every year now, we bring judges from around the world to look at our work, and they decide who gets the gold, who gets the silver, and who gets the bronze. I also lead a global creative council, and at the end of every session, we do our external ROI, our external return on inspiration, where we bring in external thought leadership on whatever topic we're talking about. And then we do webcasts with different partners to continue and inspire all the great work that many of you are a part of globally. So once we focused on internally, it's also time to lean in externally into culture. Okay, so I'm coming back to that question I had earlier. We had a tweet out there. Again, remember, everything we do, we start with a tweet to see if there's any type of virality to it. And I would say this is the one campaign that we are so proud of at McDonald's when we think about contagious creative and we think about leaning into culture with our own assets, which is our dear friend, Grimace. So like if you've ever had your birthday party at McDonald's, that tweet went viral and we decided to launch Grimace's birthday and celebrate his birthday. We plan for impact and resonance, not just reach and frequency. And I think that this is the most important point here, is that we put the ingredients out for participation. It is all about trying to figure out how you can share the pen with your fans. No stone left unturned. Take a look.
There's a generation of fans who never got to experience a birthday at McDonald's. So this June, we set out to change that. We brought back the beloved McDonald's icon, Grimace, and threw him a birthday party that everyone could attend. We had him take over on social to invite everyone. But to make any party a success, you need three things. You need good music. So we made a collaborative playlist fans took to the aux cord. You need games. So we made a video game that you could play on your phone, your laptop, or even port to your Game Boy Color. And you need drinks. So we made a special Grimace Shake.
The Grimace birthday shake?
The first new flavor in 7 years. A good party goes just like you planned. But the best parties can get a bit crazy.
Happy birthday, Grimace.
Lily, let go. Lily! Lily!
Like, crazier than you could have anticipated crazy. Like, are the police going to come? Crazy.
All the crazy shit I did tonight, those will be the best memories. I just wanna let it go for the night. That would be the best therapy for me. All the crazy shit I did tonight, those will be
Some fans wish the party would never end. But the golden rule of any party, when the drinks run out, the party's over.
the best therapy for me.
How fun is that? But had we known it was gonna, everyone asked, like, how'd you do that? How are you supposed to know that something, you never know what's gonna go viral, right? I did wanna talk about this because there was so much discussion as this is happening. Everyone that's going to the stores, getting their Grimace Shake, posting all of these very graphic things on, TikTok, going nuts globally. We're living in a borderless world. What do? Do you respond? Do you not respond? How do you respond? I love the way that Grimace responded because it was through the eyes of Grimace where he said, me pretending I don't even see the Grimace Shake trend. And that's exactly what it is. It's fan to fan. It's through the eyes of what would Grimace say if he were to see, this happening right now. The other one that I'm so proud of is work that comes out of the Philippines. This is a campaign that I call small but mighty because they spent such few dollars and got so much exposure and virality to it. So to all your gamers out there, as you know, gaming is huge, especially in the Philippines. And if you think about it, anytime there is food featured, if any type of fries are featured, it's typically like some sort of mock-up of McDonald's with the red packaging. And so if you see a burger in the virtual world, we ask them to tag it and claim it one of its own, and then we rewarded them in a very special way. So take a look.
People are loving their McDonald's, and it seems the gaming world does too. This looks a lot like McD. So does this. And is this a Big Mac? A brand so iconic that video games have been mimicking them for years. Our menu was hiding in plain sight, all across the gaming multiverse. And all we had to do was invite gamers to branded McDonald's. This is Unbranded Menu. We identified the country's best gaming influencers, ranked them on reach and platform played, then teamed up with them to start a game within these games. Gamers love to screen grab their favorite gaming moments. So, we challenge them to search across games, screen grab McDonald's food-alikes, and tag them #ThisIsMcDonald's. The fries in Goat Simulator? Branded McDonald's. The burger in Grand Theft Auto? Now a Big Mac. The burger in Final Fantasy XIV? You guessed it, a Quarter Pounder. Soon after, their legions of followers were tagging McDonald's all over.
This is McDonald's! This is McDonald's freaking fries! Yes! McDonald's fries ba to?
We powered up the hunt with customized responses, enabling gamers to turn their virtual finds to real McDonald's food. Delivered to them free.
And you can get a digital cheeseburger, digital fries.
Yes, and then I get the actual one delivered as well.
And now, whenever gamers find fast food in games, they think McDonald's.
What a fun campaign. I don't know if you guys saw that in the little parentheses, but 2/3 of Philippine gamers were impacted by this. And so this is just a really great way to be super creative with your spend and really tap into a fan truth around gaming. And so instead of mirroring culture, we always talk at McDonald's around leading and living in culture. Are we helping create culture like we did with Grimace's birthday? And finally, I want to share with you something we talk about all the time at McDonald's, which is share, scale, and steal. So this is something that is part of our cultural norm, and it's something that we reward at McDonald's. And the way we think about scaling, which is very similar to how many of you may think about it, is you have global programs that you can best and only do together, and then you have programs that are done locally that we want to share and steal. And so I'm going to show you an example of a market-led campaign that originated in the UK. I'm sure many of you have maybe seen it. It's called Raise Your Arches, and sometimes a little eyebrow wave is all you need to go to McDonald's. Take a look.
That's as far as I can get. Obviously, I've had Botox. The most iconic, absolutely brilliant.
It's another scorcher in Britain.
McDonald's have just released their second edition of their Fancy a McDonald's campaign, and it is really good.
Great news is that absolutely smashes it.
Iconic.
Top 2%.
McDonald's have built such a credible brand.
What a fun idea. Again, I think 7 years ago, that could have been a one and done. But you see, they took that fancy McDonald's platform that had been around for years and continued, starting in the office, bringing it to summer road trips, which is very popular in the UK and Ireland, and then at the end, bringing it to the holiday season. So we showed what's also interesting is that no food was featured. It was just that simple nod around, okay, let's go to McDonald's. And we adapted it in 35 markets. So what you see here is an incredible adaptation in Hong Kong, and the Middle East did a phenomenal job kind of sharing and stealing that execution. And so again, we reward the behavior of stealing ideas from each other, and we've really tried to operationalize that at McDonald's. As I talked earlier about the Feel Good Marketing Awards, one of the categories we have is sharing and stealing. So again, we try and help make sure that all of our markets search before they start. Whether it's externally or internally, there's so much great thinking out there, and there's no reason why we shouldn't steal and make ideas even better. So we're trying to continue to build that muscle of sharing and stealing creativity, just like the collector's cups that just launched about a month ago and literally moved the stock the next day. So we know how to celebrate both partnering externally, but then also leveraging the icons that we have with our characters, tapping into old memories and creating new ones, which our fans love and embraced, and so did the media. And so without that, sometimes we share a very early idea. Raise Your Arches was actually shared with all the CMOs about 6 months before it went live so we could all launch it together. And then sometimes it's a fully formed IMC like you saw in the Adult Happy Meal, which launched in the US. And then a year later, Spain decided to do the promotion with friends. So it's about markets wanting the best ideas, and a kudos to our agency partners who have really embraced the idea of it's not invented here mentality. They are all about importing and exporting ideas. Just look at Grimace. He first celebrated his birthday in the US. I don't know if there's any Mets fans here or not. Very sad that they didn't make it. But as you can see here, there's actually a Grimace chair that is now sitting in the Mets stadium and is going for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. But Grimace has really become part of the fan base of the New York Mets. He took a trip to Canada. In 3 days, the shake sold out, resulting, as you can see, in some very, very good business results. Then he crossed the Atlantic to the UK, and just 2 weeks ago, he landed in Sydney. And so, as you can see, we continue to try and share and steal and localize where we can. So instead of our marketers just handing the brief to the agency and saying, here's the brief, we always ask, did you search before you start? Before we have a whole briefs library, we share all of our campaigns on an exchange that everyone can see, just because there is so much power in sharing and stealing and scaling. And so I just wanted to end with some final thoughts that creativity is not just about that cool ad and just trying to be written up in, the media. It's really a multiplier of growth, growing your brand, business, talent, capabilities, and scale. And I'm going to give our CFO the final word. As I mentioned, he was sitting on the floor at Cannes earlier in June, and he said, the biggest risk in marketing is playing it safe. Take risks with execution, but not the strategy. From our CFO. And so my challenge to you is to make your CFO sound like your CMO too. Thank you.
All right, we have a few minutes for questions here. First off, I don't want the date to ever come where my daughters are too old for a Happy Meal, so I hope that day never comes.
Yeah, it's a tear.
You talk about making a believer of your CFO. I want to start here. A lot of people in the audience dream about that, where we can be, cozy and tight with our CFO. What are some of the tips or thoughts you have in terms of establishing a co-creative experience with that?
Yeah, so a couple things I can share at McDonald's. It's been a journey. I think the first thing I would say is creating a common language. So at McDonald's, we called it, over the last couple of years, one McDonald's way of marketing and one McDonald's way of metrics. And the beauty about that is whether you are a VP of finance or a VP of marketing, we're all speaking the same language. And it's so beautiful when you hear someone in finance talk about ROMs, return on marketing spend, and likewise when you hear a marketer talk about guest counts and sales. So definitely making sure, and it takes time to establish that one way of looking at metrics and one way of looking at marketing. But that's something that we've really been pushing through over the last couple years. And then the second thing I would say is really setting the tone from the top. So Morgan Flatley, our global CMO, give you an example. Next week, we are having all of the MDs from the markets and CMOs coming into headquarters to present their 2025 plans. We have all about 2 hours with all the MDs of the markets. The MDs are the CEOs of all the markets to talk about creativity. They already understand. We've spent the last couple of years with the MDs really bringing and inspiring them of what good looks like, and then what are the barriers to making sure that they are supporting the CMOs and marketers to getting there. And so it's just a matter of setting the tone from the top and building that case for creativity, which now the MDs have. Now it's just about how do we elevate and how can they support and understand what great looks like and help ask the right questions to their CMO so that they can step away and let the CMO drive those brave ideas. So I think it's common language and just setting the tone from the top. And then obviously there's an organization part to it too. So
the feel-good marketing was always the backbone and the foundation, but was there a triggering event or a reason that you can remember as to why you decided for more refocus on fans first, almost an exclusivity to a point of leveraging fan to fan as the strategy?
Yeah, so this has been also a journey. It's not something that happened overnight. I would say we started talking about fan truths 4 years ago, but it takes time because you start off with an insight, but an insight, what we found is that it wasn't through the eyes of a fan. It still felt like McDonald's talking to the fan versus the fan talking to the fan. And so we did put out a lot of guidelines around what do we mean by our tone of voice? What do we mean by our personality? What does it mean to be fan to fan? And so I think that that's obviously part of it. I think the other piece of it is just, obviously Grimace's birthday is a great example of that, of just putting out, the voice of a fan. We talk a lot about sharing the pen. And so the unlock for us, I believe, is making sure that the campaigns have, again, something that we talk about a lot, but campfires into fireworks. You're not stopping at just traditional channels to help get to Gen Z and Gen A audience who are digital social first. So make sure that you are putting out all these different campfires in your campaign because you never know what's going to turn into a firework. So sharing the pen is a big piece of our strategy. And then the third thing I would say is we have what's called a field brief. Before we brief our agencies, we have the brief. I don't know if there's any cassette fans in the crowd right now. They're one of our incredible agencies in Canada. But we actually replaced the insight on the brief with the word fan truth. And we talk about it being shared, specific, and special. So a fan truth has to be something shared. It has to be something that more than one person feels like, that part of that community that we talked about earlier. It needs to be specific to McDonald's. Are you a pickle lover or a pickle hater? And then it also needs to be something special. Something that after you see it, you're like, oh, like you said earlier with the Happy Meal and your child, like when you see that as a parent, like your kid's outgrown the Happy Meal, it definitely triggers you. So it's been a journey, but I am so proud of how the system has embraced this concept of a fan truth, which to me is a lot more exciting than just saying an insight.
How do you establish a balance with being genuine in your curation of fan-to-fan experience and using that as the storytelling thread, while still maintaining some level of brand consistency and integrity and franchisee buy-in? How do you give the power away but maintain cohesiveness?
Yeah, so sharing the pen, obviously it is taking a risk, but you have to put it through the lens of just making sure that you are authentic. Are you solving a real problem for a real person? And if you are, then you're doing things right. I think the other thing is we think about putting it through the lens of a real fan. So for example, I came from the CPG world where anytime we do a photo shoot, everything is just perfect. At McDonald's, we actually talk about food as being flawsome and being messy. When people eat McDonald's, it's messy. And so the way we show the food is through the eyes of the fan. Everything we do, we say, is it true? Is it true that a fan would eat a Big Mac like that? Is it true? Is that something a fan would really say? And I think if you say those three words with everything you're doing along the way, you'll be able to gut check and see if it's real. In terms of sharing the pen, if you put out all those, again, you don't know what's going to go viral. In Grimace's birthday, they did a beautiful job of having so many different ways that different fans could interact with McDonald's. And what ended up going viral was the shake that ended up bringing you to, which was brilliant because it also helped drive the business. So every time someone came, they wanted to get the shake. And then obviously we sold out within days. So outside
of the Twitter tactic that you use to kind of get a beat on what what's being talked about, what culture is saying, what other mechanisms do you rely on to kind of peek around the corner a little bit as it relates to the role you can play and maybe even facilitate in certain cases within culture building?
Yeah. So first of all, I think that's a wonderful question. We are very, at the end of the day, we're trying to go after Gen Z and Gen Alpha, who are kind of the mini millennials. And so, as I talked about earlier, road trips is something that we do often, whether it's, ethnographies or just making sure that you are talking to your fans and getting out of the office as much as possible. We talk a lot about subcultures. So not just when you think about culture, you have planned events like the Olympics or League One in France that are coming and that you can plan for. But it's also planning for the unplanned. And so I'd say kudos to a lot of the teams at McDonald's who have really formed very strong relationships with legal and comms. And so when these opportunities come up, like Stephen Curry in France, when the Welcome As You Are, and during the Olympics, there was a huge buzz around the sauces and Steph Curry with the curry sauce. And so they quickly called up the marketer and said, do you mind if we posted? They did. And then Steph Curry responded, and it was amazing. So making sure that you really have a very strong relationship. At Kraft, we had a war room. So things like that, so that you're always prepared that if something comes up on a weekend, you can jump on it. But also just thinking about the planned events and then thinking about subculture and unplanned events.
We have time for one more. I'm curious, throughout your career at McDonald's, what have you learned that maybe you're surprised to learn about yourself? How has your perspective on brand and creativity changed through your tenure here?
Oh boy. I would say, I'll probably take a more personal note, but I would just say I've learned to own my own destiny. I started my career in CPG, where I worked at a company, Kraft Foods, Kraft Heinz, for 10 years. And it was a very different culture in the sense that I knew that if I did really good work, that you would just be promoted. Like one day you walk into work and you're just being promoted and you're being put on another brand. And so every 12 to 18 months, I knew that everyone was being taken care of without having to own your own destiny. But coming to McDonald's, I really learned that you really need to chart your path and figure out where do you want to be in at least the next 5 years and figure out a way to do that. And I've been very fortunate to have 5 roles in 5 years. I feel like I have the best job at McDonald's, which is running brand and creative, but that happened because I actually reached out to the VP of brand 2 years ago. And when he came on and said, just so you know, I'm coming to work for you one day. And then when they did a reorg, I found that I was put in this role. So definitely own your own destiny. And then second, I would say surround yourself by people that you admire. I am so fortunate to work with the best agency partners, the best creatives, and the best planners in the world. I admire them. And I love being in a room with them so that my job is, obviously you guys see I have a lot of passion for what I do, but surround yourself by people that you truly, truly admire. And then, I would just, of course, you have to have fun.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. Thanks, Ryan.